My name is William Ruto. There is a person who owns the land of Kang'ata Road.
Because the information we had was that trying to grab this land, Kang'ata Primary School, was to create a parking lot for Weston.
Where
Hotel.
does that come from? Do you have the owner of the plot told you that he was selling it to Weston Hotel?
It has been said that the owners of Weston Hotel, and your names have been mentioned again,
Correct.
grabbed this land as well.
Precisely. So why hasn't whoever lay claim to this land, why haven't they gone to court?
January 19th, 2015, a group of activists, school pupils, parents are gathered in a protest. Their land is under the risk of being taken away. Rumors are starting to spread that the man behind this saga is the Deputy President William Ruto, and they're spreading fast. The disputed land is a 1.2-acre plot that has served as the school property for 4 decades since 1970. The land is being claimed by a private developer, Airport View Housing Limited, stating that the school had never produced any document showing that it owned the sweet property. But there is more to this story. Something does not add up. On 14th April 2016, a court case was filed, and on their defense, the developer stated they were duly allocated all that piece of land via a letter of allotment dated the 4th of October 1989 by the then Commissioner of Lands FWS Muidhokia. They had been allocated the land for a period of 99 years starting from October 1st, 1989. But wait, this piece of land is right next to Weston Hotel, which belongs to none other than William Ruto, separated by only a single wall. Could Ruto be the mastermind behind this scheme? The tension around the case started rising fast, and the public was starting to demand for action from the main government. It wasn't long before the President of Kenya, Uhuru Kenyatta, stepped in. Furious, he called for the immediate action, demanding that the National Land Commission investigate this issue.
Since December of last year, why did they not take the necessary action? And this is something that they must account more than even the police officers. They are the ones who should have taken the necessary action to come and tell us yesterday that the school belongs to the land.
But the pressure did not stop there. The then Minister of Lands, Charity Ngilu, was forced into a corner.
My colleague, Honorable Ngilu, and the chairman of the Land Commission to ensure that they tell Kenyans by today or by tomorrow who are the grabbers, not the owners. You know the owners are the school.
Her team, in collaboration with the Lands Commission, finally gave a statement affirming the school as the legal owners of the land. She went even deeper and mentioned the purported land grabbers as the 4 directors of Airport View Housing Limited.
Madip Singh Amrit, he's a director. Number 2, Majid Singh Amrit, director, and he has the same box number. The 4th director is Kamau Prakash Amrit, and he's also a director, same box number, and he has 1,000 shares.
But Ngilu stayed quiet on one crucial detail: Ruto's connection to the case. At this point, William Ruto was the deputy president, and while addressing another land scandal, Ngilu came clean that she intentionally avoided mentioning his name to protect the interest of the government at the time.
The biggest land grabber in this country, if not in the world, and that is Ruto himself. I was the Minister of Land, and the worst that I saw Ruto trying to do was to grab the piece of land that belonged to Kang'ata Primary School next to his Weston Hotel. Poor children's land that he himself thought it wise to grab it.
But then came Boniface Mwangi, a fearless activist who didn't hesitate to point fingers directly at William Ruto.
The police on Monday were acting on the behest of a very powerful person who the president himself is afraid to name. You know why? It's his deputy.
At the time, this was a dangerous move. Ruto was the second most powerful man in Kenya. Despite the risk, Mwangi's claim brought even more public attention to the issue. This attention, together with a statement from Ngilu, would lead to the intervention of the National Land Commission. The chairman at the time, Muhammad Swazuri, in the favor of the school, ordered the developers to demolish the perimeter wall that they had already built around this land. The situation escalated further when angry protesters, including students, took matters into their own hands, bringing the wall down themselves. Unfortunately for them, this would lead to the intervention of anti-protest police officers who would use tear gas to violently disperse the crowd. This included the young pupils who were present at the ground. It led to injuries of at least 5 students, and certainly the rest were left traumatized. This incident would see the Cabinet Secretary of Interior Security, Joseph Nkaiseri, suspend the commanding police officer in charge of the operation, who had ordered and allowed the use of tear gas without considering the presence of the young pupils. Or maybe he did consider but did not care. Suspending him would not be enough, and so, to appeal to the softer side of Kenyans, Nkaiseri would the following day personally visit the school and offer an apology for the extreme use of power by the police.
Mlikula tear gas kidogo, si kweli? So I have come to apologize, kusema hiyo haikuwa mzuri, hatua imechukuliwa na itafanyika tena.
As of today, the Nairobi County government erected a new wall and labeled it as a property of the school. The last statement that came from the then governor of Nairobi, Evans Kidero, stated that the title deed for the land was still under the hands of the grabbers. The developers still hold that they are the rightful owners of the land for a period not less than 99 years. The question remains, is William Ruto behind this particular saga? The land in dispute is a 100 acres farm located in Turbo West, Uasin Gishu County. During the first ever multi-party election in Kenya in 1992, the violence that followed would see Muteshi displaced from his land by gang members. But this was just the tip of the iceberg. In 2007, history would repeat itself again, and during the 2007 post-election violence, Muteshi would be displaced again, and fearing for his life, he fled his home and went on to live as an internally displaced person. Upon conducting his own secret investigation, on May 2010, Muteshi came to know that the people on the farm were workers of William Ruto. It wasn't until 6 months later, on 19th October 2010, that he would formally charge William Ruto. On December 6th the same year, William Ruto filed for a defense and the game was on. This was a particularly hard case for Muteshi, as he was against 5 high-ranked defendants, including William Ruto, the Commissioner of Lands, the Attorney General, and Dorothy Jemtai, from whom Ruto had purchased the land. To ascertain how Muteshi had come to own this land, he gave a statement saying that he received this parcel back in 1968 from a white settler identified as Mr. Edmund.
Muteshi says he bought the land from a white settler, Mr. Edmund, in 1968
and was issued with a title deed in 1989 with the approval of the then Minister of Land, Jackson Angaini. The land was in his possession for 42 years before the grab attempt. On Ruto's defense, his lawyer, Katwa Kigeni, argued that the land had been legally acquired from one Dorothy Jemtai Yatar, and the siting done by a licensed land surveyor, Patrick Opio and Associates. It is worth noting that efficiently, Jemutai's husband, Mr. David Kiptogen, was a land officer, and all the individuals that were involved in the sale of this land to William Ruto were employees of the Ministry of Lands in 2008, which was around the time that Muteshi would lose his land. It was further alleged that there was a possibility that Mr. Kiptogen had used his wife's name, Dorothy Jemutai, in multiple land transactions. Jemutai defended herself, stating that on 23rd of June 1980, she was 6 years old and she had no capacity to negotiate or transfer land, that somebody forged her signature, that it is William Ruto, the first defendant, who benefited, not her. She never received any money from him. The case was heard severally over the span of 3 years before a verdict. On 13th June 2013, Justice Rose Oga of Kenya High Court came to a conclusion that the land belonged to Andrew Muteshi and Ruto had taken ownership illegally. In addition, with the request of Muteshi, Justice Ogo ordered that he be compensated with 5 million Kenyan shillings for denying him access to his own land. This was not the end. William Ruto went ahead to file for an appeal of this decision, stating that he was not at fault, but rather Jemutai and the Commissioner of Land who had approved the sale, and so imposing the compensation amount to him was not fair at all. At this time, Ruto was bracing himself to vie for presidency in 2022, and seemingly to reduce controversies behind his name, he would in 2017 withdraw the case as a whole. He further confirmed to have paid the amount in full on the presidential debate.
We need to discuss the Muteshi land. You've talked about the 100 acres. What the court ordered me to do was to pay for the 3 years I had occupied the land, and they calculated and said the income from this land would be approximately 5 million shillings, and that's what I paid.
This cemented the verdict of Justice Ogo, giving Muteshi full ownership and rights of the land. Muteshi passed on at the age of 86 years on 27 October 2020. The land in question is the 2,500 acres parcel in Mata Ward along Kosi Jipe Road. William Ruto acquired this land when he was serving as the Minister of Agriculture during the late former President Mwai Kibaki's regime. According to his statement, he was gifted this land by Basil Criticus, the then member of parliament of the area.
Huyu mjumbe wenu wa zamani Basil Criticus kanikatia kashamba yake kadogo pale.
This was after William Ruto helped Criticus pay off a loan burden owed to the Agricultural Finance Corporation.
Aliniambia nimlipie deni alikuwa naye kule AFC.
It is worth noting that the AFC was under Ruto's docket as the Minister of Agriculture at the time. When asked, Basil Criticus confirmed Ruto's statement as true. However, upon being requested to expound further on this matter, he brushed it off, calling it a secret and he could not tell anyone. At one point, William Ruto was so eager to explain how he acquired the land before being cut off aggressively.
Mr. Deputy President, my question was,
Taveta land issue.
There was that, there's a Taveta, there's Western Hotel, there's Transmara. As a person,
yes.
Which begs the question, could there be some degree of truthfulness in his statement? Notably, by the year 2012, Kenya was already under a new constitution, and according to the Leadership and Integrity Act, any gift or donation given to a state officer on a public or official occasion is considered a gift or donation to the republic and must be delivered to the state unless exempted under an act of parliament. In our case, if Ruto was right and the land was a gift, it was by law supposed to be handed to the government, as there is no proof of any approved act of parliament. The land would later bring up social issues where the member of parliament of Suna East constituency, Junet Mohammed, would through a letter address the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission. He complained that this particular land was blocking off a key water canal that led to the decreased water levels of Lake Jibe. Ruto was conducting water-intensive activities like raising crocodiles, livestock farming, and irrigation through a South African company. In addition, there were accidents being reported around this parcel of land, one in particular leading to a fatality.
Mimi na uchungu sana sababu huyo tu ndio mtoto nilikuwa niko naye.
The only legal action available in the public domain is that of Taita Taveta County government seeking a court order to access the farm and address the water diversion issue. As of now, the land remains under the ownership of William Ruto, and the controversies around the waterways have also not been completely solved. The 1,600-acre land in question is located on the outskirts of Nairobi. The plot was originally intended for expanding the Nairobi sewer system. The land was being claimed by Renton Company Limited, which is linked to William Ruto. Renton Company asserted that it had legally acquired the land and had plans underway for its development. However, the government under the previous administration of President Uhuru Kenyatta disputed this claim. In a dramatic turn of events, in May 2020, the government repossessed the land after confirming that it had indeed been grabbed. The Ministry of Water and Sanitation stated that the land was crucial for the expansion of the Dandora Estate Sewerage Treatment Plant, which serves over 5 million residents of Nairobi. The Ruai land case took on additional significance due to its timing and the political context, because the repossession occurred during a period of heightened political tension between William Ruto and the then President Uhuru Kenyatta. In January 2023, after Ruto had assumed the presidency, the Environment and Land Court ruled against Renton Limited. The court under Justice Samson Okongo declared that the company had acquired the land illegally and that it rightfully belonged to the Nairobi City Water and Sewerage Company. This case stretches to as far as September 2001, when the larger part of the 272 million Kenyan shillings transaction took place. It is one of the oldest land grab attempts by William Ruto on the record. 3 years later, in 2004, under the regime of Mwai Kibaki, deep investigations concerning the sale of Gong Forest land began. However, it was not until 2010 that Ruto, the then Minister of Higher Education, Joshua Kulei, the former President Moi's personal assistant, Sami Mwaita, former Lands Commissioner, and 2 other firms would be formally charged with defrauding the Kenya Pipeline Company. Ruto was said to have received 96 million during the transaction. The prosecution stated that this happened through a company that traced back to William Ruto, known as Baki Commercial Agencies. These accusations would lead to the suspension of William Ruto as the Minister of Higher Education on an early Tuesday.
If you ask me to step aside from being minister, by being a member of parliament for Eldoret North, I'm still a public officer.
So am I also supposed to step aside from being member of parliament for Eldoret North?
His position was immediately taken up by Professor Helen Sambili. The trial lasted for a span of several months, and on April 2011, Ruto was acquitted of the 43 million in land fraud charges due to a lack of evidence. The Nairobi Chief Magistrate Gilbert Mutembei ruled that the prosecution had failed to prove that Ruto and his co-accused had received the money. Western Hotel is located along Lang'ata Road opposite Wilson Airport. The land is approximately 1.91 acres. It is said to have originally been public and was designated for the construction of a flight path beacon by the Directorate of Civil Aviation in 1999, Priority Management Limited and Monene Investments Limited. Two companies allegedly associated with William Ruto entered the picture. These two firms applied for the allocation of the land, claiming it was unutilized. The companies were successful in the application and were allocated the parcel by the Commissioner of Lands. On January 5, 1998, a letter of allotment was issued, and the speed and ease with which this prime public land was transferred to private hands raised immediate red flags. By then, William Ruto was still the Member of Parliament of Eldoret North. The suspicious thing about these two companies is that, according to the Nation e-paper, the letter of allotment of the land sent to them contained an address that traced back to Koilel Farm Limited, whose directors are Ruto's wife, Rael Kimeto Chebet, and his son, Nicholas Ruto. At this point, William Ruto had not yet purchased the land from the two companies. Ruto would then acquire the land on 13th June 2007 via the Western Hotel Limited as his company. Construction of the Western Hotel began immediately in 2007. The Kenya Civil Aviation Authority, the successor to the Directorate of Civil Aviation, protested the development, arguing that the land had been illegally acquired. Despite these objections, constructions continued and the hotel opened its doors in 2014. The controversy surrounding the Western Hotel land reached a climax in 2015 when the National Land Commission began investigations into its acquisition. In another interview with the BBC, he left a hint that he also affirmed the land could have been illegally acquired.
Tell me about the Western Hotel, which you own, which is worth an awful lot of money and which is sitting on illegally acquired land.
For your information, Western Hotel was bought
illegally.
Not bought illegally. Western was an innocent purchaser for value from somebody who got it illegally. And reparations have been made constitutionally to restore that land to Kenya Civil Aviation Authority.
This admission, far from quieting the controversy, only fueled the public outrage. The KCAA, determined to reclaim what it viewed as public property, filed a case with the National Land Commissions in 2018. In a surprising turn of events, the commission recommended that the KCAA be compensated at the current market value of the land. This judgment was done by the then National Land Commission Vice Chairperson, Ms. Abigail Mbagaya.
At the current open market value, to enable Kenya Civil Aviation Authority buy a land of similar size and value, Western must restitute. If he wants, he can go after the people who sold him.
This decision was, however, met with widespread criticism. Many people saw it as a slap on the wrist for what they perceived as a clear case of land grabbing. The KCAA, unsatisfied with the ruling, moved to the High Court to challenge this decision. As the case dragged on, new details emerged. It was revealed that Ruto had used the hotel as a collateral for a 1.3 billion Kenyan shillings loan from KCB Bank in 2014. As of 2024, the Western Hotel land case remains unsolved and is still under the ownership of William Ruto. The High Court has yet to deliver a final verdict, with the case having faced numerous delays. There are also no statements or hard proof that any amount was paid to the KCAA as per the National Land Commission ruling. The story of Possession Away is one without a lot of information on the public domain, but one that sparks quite an interest. The parcel in question is a strip of land that connects Kenyatta Avenue to one end of State House Road. Ruto is said to have grabbed this land during the reign of the late former President Daniel Moi. It is said that he already had the title deed for this land, with which he had taken a loan from the Kenya Commercial Bank. Of course, the security was this parcel of land.
From Serena to State House. He got a title deed, went to KCB, and he borrowed some money against it.
Ruto alikuwa ashachukua 100 million kwa hiyo title.
The land was reclaimed in 2003 after the former President Mwai Kibaki took over leadership. Kibaki immediately brought a strict policy against any form of corruption, and out of sheer terror, William Ruto began finding a way to give back the land to the state. According to Mother Karua, he did this by paying back the money owed to KCB Bank in batches, and eventually the land would indeed be returned to the government.
Ika-announcewa zero tolerance to corruption na ikasemekana watu watafuatiliwa. Alienda akalipa procession away ikarudi na title ikarudi.
At this point, it is a major road in the city. William Ruto's accession to power has not been an easy one, nor has it been a clean one at that. These are just but a few publicly available cases of land grabs in a long trail of corruption against him. This leaves the question, how many more lands that are not available in the public domain has William Ruto grabbed? You'd be surprised to know that the Kang'atas also have had their fair share of land sagas. Check out my video on the dark side of the Kang'ata family. See you there.